Hey YouTube, I think I messed up that ILS landing this morning, so I think I'm going to test that again. And while I do that, I struggle sometimes with the mic and the sound at the same time, so I'm also testing mic and a headset at the same time to see how that works out for the videos. So this is a three-part test. Um, I think everything is programmed in the computer or in the G530 the way I need it from when I was landing here earlier. But let's go ahead and check that and get that set up and try the ILS landing again with the G530. So I'm going to do the ILS 30Y, which is what I tried this morning. And I will activate and just fly directly to it. Anyways, with this setup, with the headset and then having the mic independent, I'm hoping that I'll be able to hear the aircraft better. I'll be better tuned with it, being able to hear the engines, hearing whether or not there's alerts and warnings. Like I did a video the other day and it kept saying, don't sink, don't sink, don't sink. I might have done more to try to prevent that warning had I been able to hear it, but I wasn't. So, all right, I'm going to skip checking the ailerons, flaps, rudders, and yaw, and just go to the runway if I can find it. I don't know where I am relative to the runway at this point, so I'm going to have to taxi around until I find it. I'm just in the default aircraft this morning. No special livery. Default cockpit. No changes. Let's see, let's go ahead and set this to GPS and have that ready. I should check magnetic north, so I think what I'll do is since I'm going to get turned directly on one of those. .300 heading. Okay, and now that we're on 300, I'll set it to 300. That's also the direction we're going to come in for a landing, so just coincidentally, I didn't plan it like that. Right now it is very nice on my part to be able to actually hear the aircraft. I can hear the engines wind up when I'm, taxiing, and that's useful information. It's sensory, so it's helpful. I think I'll take off going out left, and I don't need the entire runway. It should lift off relatively quickly. So as soon as I get on the runway, I'm just going to give it full throttle and head on out of here. Windsock doesn't look like it's doing anything. rotating, retracting the flaps, initiating the autopilot, and get the vertical speed before it gets out of hand. I'll fly to about 2,000 feet. Landing and taxi lights are off. What I did there was I switched the ILS localizer 109.7 to be the active for the nav radio. What I'm not sure of is whether or not I'm going to have to switch to nav on both here for the VOR and on the autopilot for the landing, but that's what I'm going to test. I'm hoping that the GPS will automatically switch me over when the time comes. It didn't work earlier, and it may not work now. I'm just going to give it a shot, thinking perhaps I did something wrong previously. Can you hear me okay? I wasn't watching my altitude. I'm going to do an altitude hold, let it level off, reduce the throttle, and I'll descend down to 200 or 2,000 feet, or at least 2,500. Alright, doing an altitude hold at 2,000 feet. Nothing exciting to see for this flight, I'm afraid. Floor rig. Typically on a GPS you get a straight line, so it's interesting to me that this particular path to the next waypoint is a curved line. It's new to me. I've never seen that before. Mm. It's just a screw. I thought it was letters. I thought it said CD when I was looking at it, but it's just a screw. Okay, I'm noticing something here I have not noticed before. I don't know what that means. To me, LOC means localizer, but INSI, I would have to guess at that one more so than LOC. Let me do a quick Google search on that. INSI. I typed that in wrong. Let me do G530. G530. Yeah, so I'm not getting any hits on that right off the bat, so I didn't really pay attention to when that showed up either. It may have been there from the beginning of the flight. If we were flying waypoints, that's where the information for the waypoints goes. Let me try just doing a search on what does INSI mean. Insight. Insight. I'm getting a lot for insight. Now let me try GPS. What does GPS INSI mean? GPS INS is the use of GPS satellite signals to correct or collaborate a solution from an inertial. I'm pulling up the Wikipedia site, it doesn't give me all the information. From an inertial navigation system, which is INS, inertial navigation system. The method is applicable for any GNSS-INS system. Now from this wiki page, let me do a Control F and do INSI. I don't get anything but the word inside. And that could be what it means, inside, but that doesn't make me feel like I know what it is yet. Sometimes answers just don't come easy, you know what I mean? Sometimes you have to work at them. I'll do that one more time. GPS 530 LOCINSI. Now I've got the Garmin website as one of my first hits. So I'm pulling up a PDF and I'm going to do INSI. Maybe it means it's going to take you inside an airspace within the next 10 minutes. The message airspeed ahead less than 10 minutes appears, but that still doesn't indicate what I'm experiencing here. And here we are looking at a G530 document. You know, it's like, what's it take to know what this means? There's got to be somebody out there who knows. When I find out, I will certainly make it known in one of my videos. So what I don't know. Now, see, my comparison goes from the G530 to the G1000, and I am much more familiar with the G1000. So with the G1000, if I were to do this same, if I were to program this same flight, I could do it. No issue, no ifs, ands, or buts even. And I know once I got to the ILS landing, it would switch me over from GPS automatically to VOR1 for ILS. So what I don't know is whether or not the G530 has that capacity to switch me from GPS to nav, because technically this localizer station is programmed in the nav radio. So to do an official or a manual nav landing, I could switch over to nav and then I should see myself on the localizer. But what I want to know is whether or not the G530 has the capacity to switch over like the G1000 does. And if I had to answer that own question just based off of lack of data, but some form of insider intuition, I would say no, the G530 does not have that capacity. So I'm probably going to have to switch this and switch from GPSS to nav for my approach. Once I hit the approach button, it will take that away anyways, and then I can just hit Alt for the glide slope if it doesn't do it automatically. But I think what I did wrong earlier in my video this morning was I had 109.7 set here on the bottom, so it wasn't initialized, and when I switched over to nav GPS it didn't show up. But I think now if I switch over it would show up. We might be a little too soon to do it, but I can try. Yeah, see? We're localized already. So I could potentially do nav and approach right now, and it will probably guide us in now doing the ILS landing. So let's try that. let's test my theory on this. We haven't actually intercepted fully the glide slope. We're well below it, and we're still several miles out. So, I mean, you can see the island way out there. I don't know why the initial airfix takes you so far out. But I certainly don't need that much distance or space in order to do a landing. But I guess maybe some aircraft do. Bigger aircraft for sure need longer approach times. I'm going to leave the aircraft at about 110 knots. We got 126 ground speed right now. Oh, we're doing 100. We're doing over 125 knots. Excuse me. But I'm going to leave it at its current speed. And once we get a little closer, once I'm intercepting the glide slope, then I'll start slowing it down and extending the flaps and preparing for landing. Right now, I'm just going to let it cruise as fast as it can to get there to reduce the length of this video. We're already at 28 minutes in. So it'll probably be at least another 10 minutes for the video, and then add another 2 or 3 minutes for the replay. Maybe a 43, 45-minute video overall. Just guessing. So if I'm wrong, don't hold it against me. Also, when I switch from nav to GPS, at some point my little notification message that said LOC and INSI went away. Maybe that was to give me, maybe it was to inform me that I could switch, that it was ready. And so I'll be looking for that now, thinking, because I have that little idea in my head, I can be like, oh, maybe it's time for me to switch from GPS to nav now so I can do my landing. It's instances like this. Now I just got another notification for LNAV, so it must be getting ready to intercept the glide slope. I don't know, but that just showed up. Any case, I lost my train of thought because I saw that little notifier on there and switched. Oh, I know what I was going to say. In instances like this is what makes me appreciate the G1000 over the G530. I mean, I do love flying these older instruments. I do, absolutely. But when it comes to being able to do either an ILS or an RNAV, and knowing I can do it with the G1000, well, I really appreciate that. And again, the winds, I like knowing the winds, and I like knowing the terrain. I like just having access to all of that data, and I don't have that with the G530. So that's just a complaint, but it's fun to fly with a G530, a G1000, or a GTN 750, or just a radio stack. I don't see the needle for the glide slope budging yet, but we are still pretty far out. I am starting to see the varsity lights, or the PAPI lights. At least I think it's the lights I'm seeing. Right there. Right above my pointer. Well, as soon as I said that, we dipped down a little bit. Let me zoom in. Yeah, it seems like we're heading, you know, out this way and not over here. So let me look at magnetic north. We're sort of right on. I mean, I'm going to be disengaging the autopilot once we're closer anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. Oh, this should be 030, by the way. That might help. I don't know if it will or not, but it might. And this is 030. So as far as everything I've done, it looks right, but you know, with me, Well, I never know until after the fact whether or not it was right or not. And then when it doesn't work out the way that I want it to, I walk away from it scratching my head and I wonder about it. I do. I sit there and I'll wonder about it. And then I'll come up with an idea. Maybe I did this wrong. Maybe that, and that's pretty much the story of my life and how I operate in general. Yeah, it sort of zooms out. I don't think it zooms directly in. It looks to me like we're heading directly for the runway and that we're perfectly lined up. But when I zoom, it seems like it zooms to the right, like it's not a straight on zoom. So I think the zoom is incorrect. But we're lined up. Okay, and we're also intercepting the glide slope. So I'll be looking for the plane to descend, and about the time I say it, it does it. So I'm going to slow it down now. Look at the RPMs. Slow it down to about 2200 RPMs. I'm going to deploy some flaps. I want to keep it at 22 or 21 or 22. I want to keep it in the green. And I'm not slowing down quick enough, so I'm going to back down a little bit more until I get closer to 60 knots here. So this is an ILS landing for you, not an RNAV. And yeah, I did do it wrong earlier because this was inactive. It was down here, and I did not switch it up. I switched it up and switched it right back because I wasn't sure which position, and that's why I turned the knob earlier to know whether or not which one I was modifying, because I know the ones that you modify are the inactive ones. That's not something I have memorized, so I didn't know for sure. Alright, final stage of flaps is being deployed. Going to keep it at 60 knots. And see, we're lined up pretty good despite the fact that when I zoom in, it's going to zoom to that flag. Or whatever that is. But we are right on for the runway. I'm happy with this. I'm reducing the power a little bit because I was above 30 or 60 knots. And I'm about to disengage the autopilot. And this island is at a little bit of an angle, if you can tell. So it's going to feel a little weird when we land, and there's a potential for my left wheel to hit first. But I'm not too worried about that. I will get it down safely. And still have the ability to taxi. Ooh, we nose down there. I do think that winds are coming over the hill there. It happened before. It's definitely not anything that I'm doing for an adjustment with the yoke. I just think it's the way geographically the island is and the way the winds are. And a little bit of an uphill. So that required a little bit more of a nose up because of it being uphill. I didn't want my nose or my front wheel hitting first. Alright, flaps are going to start coming up now, and I'm going to look for the right place to taxi this time. I went across the dirt earlier, and I felt bad about it later because I feel like that's just being lazy. And the last thing I want to do is be lazy. and do it wrong. Probably could have exited there, but I'm going to go up to the next one. Alright, flaps are all the way up now. I got distracted from that. And I'm going to tell myself, I don't think that I turned the landing and taxi lights on. I just turned them on just now, but that's a little trickery, if you ask me. And I think that's where I thought I needed to turn earlier the other time, and then when I did, I was wrong. Right here. Right here. And I'm not the world's best taxier, that is for sure. I have the hardest time finding where I'm supposed to turn off at. That's the truth of it. Now, I don't have to tell on myself every time I do something wrong, but I like to anyways for some reason. I guess I'm not afraid of being embarrassed. I don't concern myself with pride. I can either do something or I can't. And if I can't do it, I'll learn. And that isn't pride, that's honesty. Alright. Let's check out the replay, see how the land looked as we were coming in. And yes, I have a particular angle that I like to see it at with these wheels aligned. Right or left, doesn't matter. See the ground elevation there. And then me nosing up just a little bit more to compensate. Right on the line. I'll be honest, I didn't think I was going to make it on the line, but I was trying. Initially when we were coming in, I took us off track a little bit, got us off angle, and I was like, I need to get this back on. So that was good. ILS landings are possible with the G530. I just need to remember I've got to switch to the nav and watch for that little notification on the G530. Other than that, I think it worked out pretty well. Except for this morning when I did it wrong. There's so many little nuances, things you can do wrong between an RNAV and an ILS, and maybe it's not so many things, maybe it's a few things, but it's enough to confuse me and make it feel like I need a lot of practice in order to get confident doing it both ways. You know, if I did it one way every time out, I'd still feel a little uncomfortable doing an ILS versus an RNAV because I've gotten so used to the RNAVs. With the G1000, it's so easy to do, in my opinion, that I feel confident I could do it in almost zero visibility and make it all the way. With the G530, I don't feel that way. I feel less confident with it because I still need practice. And then there's me always forgetting to check magnetic north, or just some little detail that makes the difference, all the difference in the world. Now, if I were to use checklists, that might be a different story, but see, I don't use the checklist. I'm going by the seat of my pants. I have my own version of a checklist, I guess. And then again, we are in a simulator. It's not like real life. I think if I were to become a pilot in real life, I would do things as I was supposed to do them, and not be so much seat of the pants. Because at that point, your life's in jeopardy if you don't do it right. Same thing on a motorcycle. If you ride outside your limits, you're doomed. All right, YouTube, thank you for joining me for that flight and practicing the ILS landing with me. And I'll see you next time. Have a good evening.